There is a version of Florida the tourism board will never show you, and it starts the moment the sun goes down. Welcome to the beach towns where the palm trees stay pretty but the police scanner never sleeps. This is the countdown of 12 Florida coastal towns, where the danger is real, the data is public, and even the locals lock the car doors before dark. We are talking about a beach with more shark bites than anywhere else on the planet. We are talking about a spring break party town that quietly became the deadliest beach in America. We are talking about a sleepy-looking little city with a murder rate 7 times the state average. And yes, we are talking about the place where a Walmart turned into a full demolition derby on camera. Do me a favor and hit that subscribe button right now, because if a shark, a rip current, or a wandering spring breaker gets me before the end of this list, somebody responsible has to finish the countdown. All right, let's get into it. Number 12, Fort Lauderdale. We start with the town that basically invented the concept of a beach vacation going completely feral. Picture the wide sand of Fort Lauderdale Beach and the neon bars lining the A1A Strip. And understand that college students have been flooding this coastline every March for the better part of 60 years. The 1960 movie where the boys are turned Fort Lauderdale into the spring break capital of the entire country, and the city has been trying to break up with that reputation ever since. These days, the breakup is not going smoothly at all. Police reported larger crowds than usual pouring onto the Fort Lauderdale sand. And the season now comes with alcohol bans, cooler restrictions, and license plate readers watching the causeways like hawks. During one recent spring break stretch, Fort Lauderdale logged 47 arrests, and there is real security footage of a crowd of spring breakers pummeling a man on the ground outside a downtown Irish pub at around 3 in the morning. There is even older, legendary footage of mounted police on horseback wading straight into a fistfight circle outside Beach Place, while a girl in a bikini dances around a styrofoam cooler, completely and blissfully unbothered by the chaos. That single clip tells you everything you need to know about the After Dark vibe. None of it has fully worked, which is why the arrest videos keep going viral every single spring. Local institutions like the Elbow Room Bar have watched this circus play out for generations, and the city has poured real money into extra deputies, drone surveillance, and one-way traffic loops just to keep the strip from boiling over. Fort Lauderdale is not the most violent town on this list, and honestly the daytime beach is genuinely lovely. But when the sun drops and the entertainment district fills up with drunk 20-year-olds, the odds of watching a total stranger get put in a headlock climb very fast. Consider this your gentle warm-up. The water gets deeper from here, and I mean that literally. Number 11. Lake Worth Beach. Just south of the manicured mansions of Palm Beach sits a funky little arts town that looks like it should be nothing but murals, coffee shops, and vintage bungalows painted in beach colors. The murals are real. So, unfortunately, is the crime data. According to Neighborhood Scout's analysis of FBI-reported numbers, Lake Worth Beach carries a violent crime rate of roughly 680 per 100,000 residents, which works out to about a 1 in 147 chance of becoming a violent crime victim in a single year. That same analysis found the little city is more dangerous than 94% of communities in Florida, and it recorded 4 homicides in the latest reporting year. Now here is where I have to be honest with you, because a lot of channels covering this stuff quietly are not. If you Google Lake Worth, you will find sources swearing the place is perfectly safe, and that is because they are measuring the giant suburban sprawl around it, places like Wellington and Greenacres, instead of the actual incorporated beach city. The little downtown by the water is the rough part. The stretch around Lake Avenue after midnight is a different animal than the sunny farmers market you see on a Saturday morning. Travelers have also flagged a strange rash of scams here, including a bizarre long-running con where someone claims to have a winning lottery ticket they just cannot cash for themselves. If a stranger on Lake Avenue offers you a discounted jackpot ticket, the danger there is to your wallet, not your life. The vibe on the surface is bohemian and sweet, but the underlying numbers do not care how good the coffee is. Beautiful murals, genuinely creative town, delicious food, but check the actual city boundary before you sign any lease, because the map matters far more than the brochure. Speaking of Palm Beach County neighbors that look far better in photos than they do in the crime blotter, let's keep climbing up the coast. Number 10. West Palm Beach. This is the big glossy one. The skyline sitting across the water from the billionaires, the waterfront clematis street nightlife, the boat show energy, the whole downtown on the water fantasy. West Palm Beach really wants you to look at the yachts and not at the numbers. So naturally, we are going to look at the numbers. Your chance of being a victim of violent crime here sits at roughly 1 in 174, and the city recorded 10 homicides in 2024. On a daily basis, violent crime in West Palm Beach runs about 2.16 times the Florida average. And the city is statistically safer than only about 13% of other cities in the state. That is a rough set of stats for a place with this much money openly floating around its marinas and rooftop bars. The valet at a 5-star hotel in a documented robbery hotspot can genuinely sit within the same few square blocks. The pattern here is the classic Florida split screen that you are going to see again and again on this list. You have gleaming downtown high-rises and the palm-lined Flagler Drive waterfront on one side, and on the other side, you have neighborhoods where the violent crime quietly concentrates after dark. West Palm is the perfect example of a place where the median home price and the median crime stat seem to belong to two entirely different cities stacked right on top of each other. To be fair, West Palm has genuinely been trending in the right direction, with crime falling compared to the prior years, so I will give the city credit where it is due. But the gap between the postcard and the police report is wide here. And that exact gap is the reason a video like this one even exists. You can sip a $15 cocktail on the water and be a 10-minute walk from a completely different set of statistics. If you are enjoying the countdown so far, do the almighty algorithm a quick favor and tap that like button, because we are about to get into the towns where I stopped taking casual notes and started taking actual cover. Number 9. Pompano Beach. Sandwiched right between Fort Lauderdale and Boca Raton, Pompano Beach markets itself as the quieter, more affordable stretch of Broward County coastline, and to be fair, the beach and the fishing pier really are nice. The northwest section of the city tells a much darker story than the pier does. Pompano Beach recorded 19 homicides in 2020, a sharp and painful jump from the year before, and Neighborhood Scout ranks it more dangerous than 87% of Florida cities. The genuinely heartbreaking part is who keeps getting caught in the middle of it. In 2024, the Broward Sheriff held a community meeting specifically about gun violence in Pompano Beach after a string of shootings, including a drive-by that wounded a 10-year-old boy in the crossfire, plus a separate shooting that killed a 16-year-old at a strip mall, all of it captured on surveillance video. Residents at that meeting were basically begging for a stronger police presence in the Northwest community, night after night. Parents described being afraid to let their kids play in the front yard, which is not something you ever read on a listing site. So while the tourist zone near the Pompano Beach Pier stays polished and photogenic for the visitors, the residential core carries a level of everyday gun violence that never shows up in a single glossy vacation guide. It is the kind of place where a real estate listing shows you the sunrise over the water and very carefully avoids showing you the drive 3 blocks inland. The affordability that draws people in is real, and so is the reason the prices stayed low in the first place, which is the trade-off nobody puts in the brochure. The beach is for the tourists, and the other Pompano is for the people who actually live there and hear the gunshots. Let's shift over to the Gulf Coast now, where the danger changes shape entirely and the beaches somehow get prettier. Number 8. Fort Myers. Over on Florida's southwest coast, Fort Myers is the gateway to those dreamy postcard islands, the palm-lined McGregor Boulevard, the historic Thomas Edison and Henry Ford Winter estates sitting right on the river. It is also carrying a violent crime rate of around 516 per 100,000 residents, with a murder rate hovering near 10 per 100,000. And one recent year saw 9 separate murders inside the city limits. Your odds of being a violent crime victim here land somewhere around 1 in 227, depending on which source you trust. What makes Fort Myers genuinely interesting is just how dramatically the danger swings from one neighborhood to the next. Out by Florida Gulf Coast University, the safety grades are excellent, and the vibe is basically retirement paradise. But the older core neighborhoods pull the whole city average down hard. The city is basically 2 Fort Myers wearing the same name tag, and only one of them shows up in the vacation ads. Realtors love to sell you the Gulf Coast dream of manatees and margaritas, and that dream is genuinely real out on the islands. It just comes with an asterisk once you drive back over the bridge into the older parts of town after dark. It also does not help that Hurricane Ian tore through this stretch of coastline in 2022, leaving behind property damage, displacement, and the kind of economic stress that historically pushes crime numbers in the wrong direction while a community slowly rebuilds. This is a place still climbing out of a rough stretch, and the crime has actually been declining year over year, which is real good news worth saying out loud. And now we arrive at the exact middle of the list, which means it is finally time for the single most unhinged entry on this entire countdown. Seriously, grab something solid to hold on to for this one. Number 7. New Smyrna Beach. This is the one. This is the town that genuinely made me question whether the people of Florida are completely okay. New Smyrna Beach, sitting just south of Daytona in Volusia County, is officially and proudly known as the shark bite capital of the world, and they are absolutely not being humble about the title. There is literally a giant fiberglass shark statue greeting you at the local New Smyrna Beach airport. That is not a horror movie prop, that is the actual civic branding of the place. Here is the data that earns the bloody crown. According to the International Shark Attack File housed at the University of Florida, Volusia County averages around 9 unprovoked shark bites every single year and has recorded more than 300 of them since 1882, which is more than anywhere else on the entire planet. Gavin Naylor, who manages the International Shark Attack File, has said the chances of getting bitten at New Smyrna Beach are roughly 10 times higher than anywhere else nationwide, though he also joked that you are still far more likely to get into a fender bender driving there than to actually get bitten. And here is the specific detail that will haunt your next ocean swim forever. Experts say that basically anyone who has ever waded into the water at New Smyrna Beach has almost certainly been within 10 feet of a shark without ever knowing it. In one wild stretch back in 2021, Volusia County logged 17 bites in a single year, and there have been afternoons where 2 different surfers got bitten just hours apart, a couple miles apart, on the very same day. So why here of all places? The answer is basically Florida geography doing exactly what it does best. The murky brown water and the heavy schools of baitfish near the Ponce de Leon Inlet mean blacktip sharks are constantly mistaking a dangling hand or a kicking foot for a fleeing fish. Surfers are the usual victims, since they are the ones out at dawn and dusk when the sharks are feeding hardest along the New Smyrna Beach jetty. Now, in fairness, most of these bites are quick, non-fatal little nips, and the local surfers genuinely do not seem to care even slightly, which somehow makes the whole thing so much weirder. The town leans so hard into the reputation that shark bites have basically become a tourism slogan, which is either brilliant marketing or a full-blown cry for help. If you have made it this far into the video, you clearly enjoy watching me slowly lose my faith in the Sunshine State one town at a time. So go ahead and subscribe so the next deep dive lands right in your feed. From the Shark Tank, we head back to solid ground and back to the crime statistics. Number 6. Fort Pierce. Up on the Treasure Coast, Fort Pierce has a genuinely gorgeous downtown marina, a beautifully restored historic sunrise theater, and some of the best deep-sea fishing on the entire Atlantic side of the state. It also carries a violent crime index nearly double the national average, according to Best Places data, with the central part of the city seeing roughly 373 crimes a year. Neighborhood Scout has repeatedly flagged Fort Pierce as having one of the highest violent crime rates in the whole nation when you compare it across communities of every size. And the root cause of it is not exactly a mystery to anyone. Fort Pierce carries a poverty rate near 28.6%, and a median household income sitting well below the Florida average. And economists will tell you all day that this specific combination reliably drives up theft, burglary, and violent crime. The local resident pulls back the numbers up completely. In one Area Vibe survey, 2/3 of the respondents said flat out that they did not feel safe walking alone at night anywhere in Fort Pierce. And here comes the split screen again, right on schedule, because North Hutchinson Island, the barrier island portion of Fort Pierce, actually earns top-tier safety grades. So the beach itself is calm, lovely, and basically fine for your whole family. The mainland core after dark is a completely different address with a completely different reputation and a completely different set of odds. The distance between the safe island and the rough core is measured in a few minutes of driving, not a few miles of judgment. It is one of those Florida towns where the barrier island lives in a separate reality from the mainland, sitting 400 yards away, separated by a bridge and about 1,000 points of crime index. Cross that bridge carefully and pay very close attention to which side you were standing on. Next up, we head to the town that got so fed up it had to declare a state of emergency on its own tourists. Number 5. Miami Beach. You knew this absolute legend was coming eventually. South Beach, Ocean Drive, the pastel Art Deco hotels, the most famous party strip in the entire country. Miami Beach is also the town that got so completely tired of its own spring break that city officials publicly announced, and I am paraphrasing only very slightly here, that they do not want you here anymore. In 2023, Miami Beach saw 2 deadly shootings during spring break, 488 arrests, and 105 firearms seized off the strip, which forced the city into an official state of emergency and an overnight curfew clamped down on South Beach. That was the 3rd straight year they had been forced to impose a curfew just to survive the season. The mayor at the time, Dan Gelber, said in a public video message that the enormous crowds and the sheer number of firearms had created a genuine peril that simply could not go unchecked. And then he added flatly that they do not ask for spring break in their city, and they do not want spring break in their city. Beyond the spring break chaos, Miami Beach carries a combined crime rate of around 85 per 1,000 residents, one of the highest anywhere in Florida, along with one of the highest motor vehicle theft rates in the entire nation. That last stat makes perfect sense when you cram millions of visitors and all their shiny rental cars onto one narrow little sandbar. If your rental car has out-of-state plates and a beach parking pass on the dash, it is basically wearing a costume that says, "Please break into me." Now to their credit, the crackdown genuinely worked. Miami Beach reported a 24% drop in spring break arrests in 2026, with 253 arrests inside its designated spring break zone and 41 firearms seized. This is a city that spends a fortune every single March fighting the exact brand it built its entire economy on, which might be the most Florida sentence I say, all video. But make no mistake about it, when Ocean Drive gets shoulder-to-shoulder packed at 2 in the morning, Miami Beach has decades of well-documented proof that the party can flip into a stampede or a shooting in a matter of seconds. From the most famous beach on the list, we go to one you have almost certainly never heard of, which somehow makes it even scarier. Number 4. Cocoa. And I do not mean Cocoa Beach, the mellow surfing town where the astronauts and the surf shops hang out. I mean Cocoa, the mainland city sitting right next door on the Space Coast, and that little distinction matters enormously for your safety. Cocoa carries a violent crime rate of around 1,082 per 100,000 residents, and multiple independent analyses have ranked it as the 3rd most dangerous city in the entire state of Florida. Your combined odds of being a crime victim in Cocoa run at about 1 in 22 in a given year, which is a genuinely alarming number for a quiet-looking city of under 20,000 people. Burglaries and assaults dominate the local reports, and the crime is heavily concentrated in a handful of specific neighborhoods rather than smeared evenly across the whole map. 2 streets over from a perfectly safe block, the numbers can quietly double on you. The truly tragic irony of it all is the location itself. Cocoa sits just minutes from the Kennedy Space Center, the exact place where humanity launches rockets toward other planets. And yet certain blocks of the city are struggling with a violent crime rate that most major cities would openly panic over. The historic Cocoa Village waterfront district is charming, walkable, full of little shops, and totally fine for an afternoon stroll. But drift just a few blocks in the wrong direction after the sun goes down, and the statistics turn on you shockingly fast. The gap between the 2 Cocos is so wide that tourists routinely book a hotel expecting the surf town and end up somewhere with a violent crime rate 7 times higher, purely because of one missing word on the map. The confusion is so common that locals have basically given up correcting it, and the safe surf town next door quietly benefits from sharing half a name with the rough one. One missing word on a map really should not cost you this much. It is quietly the most dangerous small town that most tourists have never even heard the name of. Now let's get right back in the water, because the last 3 entries are the true heavy hitters, and number 3 does not kill you with crime. It kills you with the ocean itself. Number 3. Panama City Beach. Way up in the Panhandle, Panama City Beach is the emerald water, sugar sand spring break machine, the town of the sprawling Pier Park Boardwalk, and the beachfront clubs like Spinnaker and Club La Vela. It is also, strictly by the numbers, one of the deadliest beaches in all of America, and it manages to earn that grim title two completely separate ways. First, there is the water. According to National Weather Service data, Panama City Beach recorded 7 rip current deaths between June 15th and June 24th of 2023. The single highest concentration of surf zone deaths of any beach in the country that entire year. And 6 of those 7 happened while double red warning flags were flying overhead. In June of 2024, a 60-year-old vacationer from St. Louis named Debbie Szymanski was found unresponsive in the Gulf near Carillon, marking the 5th rip current death in just 4 days at Panama City Beach. The rip currents here get so violently strong that the city flies those double red flags to close the Gulf entirely, backed by a $500 fine for anyone who dares wade in anyway. Second, there is the crowd problem. Because in the Panhandle, spring break does not just mean sunburns and cheap beer. During the 2025 spring break season, Panama City Beach Police made 693 adult arrests and 77 juvenile arrests and seized 61 firearms between the start of March and the middle of April. And the police chief himself openly described the season as hectic and violent, complete with multiple shootings, including a gang-related one. This is also the exact town where viral video showed a mob of spring breakers trashing a Walmart and tossing merchandise around the aisles like the whole store was a snow globe someone shook. The Panhandle spring break crowd has earned a reputation so rowdy that neighboring towns openly brag about not being Panama City Beach, which is a genuinely wild flex when you stop and think about it. So Panama City Beach can either quietly drown you in the surf or get you caught in a crossfire on the sand. And it will do either one with absolutely beautiful emerald scenery in the background. 2 spots left now. Both of them are certified legends. Let's finish this. Number 2. Daytona Beach. The self-proclaimed world's most famous beach. The place where you can actually drive your car right out onto the hard-packed sand, home of the roaring Daytona International Speedway and that neon-lit boardwalk with its old arcade and fishing pier. Daytona Beach also carries a violent crime rate of around 928 per 100,000 residents as of recent FBI data. And historically, the numbers were even uglier than that. Data gathered between 2015 and 2019 clocked Daytona Beach at roughly 1,229.9 violent crimes per 100,000 people, which was reported at the time as the single highest figure in the entire state of Florida. Then there is the special event chaos stacked on top of the everyday numbers. Daytona famously hosts both Bike Week and Spring Break. And during one recent spring break weekend, authorities made 133 arrests across Daytona and the nearby beaches, with reports of shootings and panicked crowds stampeding across the sand after mistaking the pop of crushed water bottles for actual gunfire. The city responded to the mayhem by declaring a special event zone and slapping a strict youth curfew on the beach side from 8 at night all the way until 6 in the morning. And that right there is the real tell. Cities do not curfew their own beaches over nothing. When a town has to legally ban its own teenagers from its own beach after dark just to keep the peace, the dangerous reputation is very much earned and not exaggerated. The famous hard-packed sand that lets you park your car right on the beach also means the crowds, the traffic, and the trouble all roll in and out with the tide. 12 months a year. Daytona is the rare town on this entire list that is genuinely dangerous during the big packed events and also carries elevated everyday crime the rest of the calendar year too. It is a true double threat, and it honestly came within a hair of taking the top spot on this countdown. Between the roar of the speedway and the packed boardwalk bars, Daytona almost never gets a quiet season to catch its breath. But there is one place that is somehow worse, and it has been hiding in plain sight this whole time, right across the water from the richest people in America. Number 1. Riviera Beach. Sitting just north of the pure glamour of Palm Beach, Right on the sparkling water with its busy marina and its role as the gateway to the Peanut Island snorkeling spot, sits Riviera Beach, and on paper it looks like a flawless tropical postcard. But on the FBI crime data, it is quietly one of the most dangerous cities in the entire United States. Riviera Beach carries a violent crime rate of around 943 per 100,000 residents, and Neighborhood Scout has ranked it among the top 100 most dangerous cities in the whole country. Your odds of being a victim of violent or property crime here run at about 1 in 22, and the city is statistically safer than only about 3% of all cities in Florida. But the single stat that truly stops you cold is the murder rate, which has run at roughly 7 times higher than the state average, even in a year when the actual homicide count dropped down to 7. This is a small city of under 40,000 people, quietly carrying full big city violence, driven by deep economic disparity, limited access to education, and stubbornly high unemployment concentrated in specific neighborhoods. That is a lot of pressure packed into a very small footprint of coastline. And the genuinely cruel geography of the whole thing is that all of this sits directly across the water from some of the single most expensive real estate anywhere in America. You can literally stand on a Riviera Beach dock, look across the calm intracoastal at the sprawling mansions of Palm Beach, and be standing in a neighborhood with a crime rate that beats out 97% of the entire country. You could almost throw a rock from a yacht slip in Palm Beach and nearly hit a neighborhood ranked among the most dangerous in the country. And that sentence should not be true anywhere. And yet here we are. That brutal contrast, wealth on one shore and violence on the other, is the whole story of dangerous Florida captured in one single view. So that is the full countdown 12 Florida beach towns, where the sunset is always free but the safety is never guaranteed. The theme running through every single entry is the same, that in Florida the prettiest shoreline and the scariest crime map are very often the exact same address. If this video managed to keep you watching all the way to the end, do me one last favor and subscribe so the next deep dive finds you. And drop a comment down below telling me exactly which town shocked you the most. Stay safe out there, watch the warning flags, check the crime map before you sign anything, and maybe, just maybe, do not go swimming at New Smyrna Beach at dusk. I will see you in the next one.